Hello YouTube, it's Balthazar3457, and in this video we're going to be talking about the Back to Karkand map Gulf of Oman for Battlefield 3 64-player mode. Now this is one of the oldest maps from Battlefield 2. Gulf of Oman was the map in the Battlefield 2 demo, and remained one of the most popular maps for a long time. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem to be all that popular in Battlefield 3. I decided to play it some because I wondered why that is, and I found out something interesting. The USA team, that's the team with the aircraft carrier, usually loses on this map. Now, why is that? Well, of the 4 Back to Karkand maps, Strike at Karkand, Sharkey Peninsula, Gulf of Oman, and Wake Island, 3 out of 4 of those maps are conquest assault maps. Gulf of Oman is the only conquest head-on map. Because of this, it seems like EA and DICE sort of forgot that Gulf of Oman was a conquest head-on map, and the Battlefield 3 version was structured as if it was a conquest assault map, when actually that's not what Gulf of Oman is. Back in Battlefield 2, the ticket drain from missing a few bases was fairly minimal. It was to supplement the team's kills. In Battlefield 3, the game has been simplified, air quotes, and made more dependent on territory control. If you control more bases than the other team, you start draining their tickets. The more bases you control, the faster those tickets are drained. This is different from the way things were in Battlefield 2. As a result of this, some tactics and strategies that were common in Battlefield 2 are now no longer valid in Battlefield 3. Now in Battlefield 3, it can be much more viable to spend a lot of death tickets to capture and hold a base in return for massive ticket drain benefits. Zergling tactics are now much more viable than they used to be. Because it's a conquest head-on map and was structured as if it was a conquest assault map, the Russian team, unless the server is modified, will start with significantly more death tickets than the USA team. The idea behind a conquest head-on map is that both sides start with similar resources and a similar number of bases, so this ticket count change creates an imbalance. Most USA teams lose as a result of this. However, this can be countered with territory control and lockdown-based tactics. The first thing we need to do is to take inventory of your assets. The Russian team has 3 air vehicles, 2 flanker jets, and an attack helicopter. The USA team has more aircraft directly, but the jets are air-to-ground jets, not air-to-air dogfighter jets. They have an attack helicopter and a transport helicopter. However, because of the jet imbalance, the Russian team typically has control of the skies, and in addition to the air lockdown, the Russian team has more death tickets, which places the USA team in an unpleasant but not unrecoverable starting position. This can be countered by locking down the Russian team's air power. The Russian team main base, where the aircraft spawn, is within harassment range of the large construction site towers. Someone with a Stinger missile on the roof, or a sniper with a rifle that can penetrate glass, can lock down the Russian team's aircraft and prevent them from taking off. Using the transport helicopter, you can easily land some people on the roof early in the round. The transport helicopter is not a particularly coveted vehicle, so if you try to grab the pilot's seat early on while other people are spamming to get the jets and gunship, you should be able to grab the transport helicopter pilot's seat. If the sniper places a spawn beacon up there, one squad will have an easy way to lock down both the Russian team's aircraft as well as the construction site base below. This will effectively spin around the air power imbalance, and since the USA team has a spare transport helicopter, they will have air superiority for the duration of the map. Because of air superiority, it is easier to obtain and hold control of bases, which should be enough to counterbalance the extra tickets that the Russian team gets at the start. Now as for ground combat, one important note is that there are a lot of tanks and armored personnel carriers on this map. Engineers and support players with C4 are very useful. As I mentioned in Battlefield 3, winning in Conquest is all about territory control. The rule of thumb is that the 4 starting USA team bases are easier to attack and to capture, and the 3 starting Russian team bases are easier to defend due to the terrain. This means that the Russian team will almost always capture bases early on in the match. However, if control of the 3 starting Russian team bases switches over to the USA side, it can be difficult for the Russian team to recapture them. It is fairly easy to fire from all 3 of the Russian team starter bases to the Russian team main base, meaning if the USA team captures all 3, they're very easy to defend. There are a lot of buildings and defensible positions with these 3 bases. It makes it easy for support players with C4 to lurk in and engineers with rockets. Because the Russian team lacks a transport helicopter, air control is more important for them because it makes it more difficult to move squads across the map. Due to the massive territory control importance and ticket drain, the Russian team can still be incapacitated and forced to lose very easily. If the USA team can perform a couple of basic steps, it only takes about 2 squads to lock down these 3 bases and the air power, assuming the members have the proper unlocks for the job and squad composition. Now, if you are on the Russian team, you are not totally screwed once the USA team lands a squad on the construction site roof. Your best bet is to spawn in the Russian team main base as a sniper, and start a sniper war between you and whoever is on the roof. You should have easy pickings if only engineers and support are up there and no recon. They may simply go prone and wait to shoot at your aircraft once they reach altitude, but this will still buy time for your jets and attack helicopter to take off. It's the attack helicopter's job to clear out the roof of the construction site building once it's in the air. The squad should be easy pickings when the helicopter pilot and gunner's attention is drawn to them. The best thing to do would be to drop the helicopter gunner off on the roof to prevent more enemy squads from spawning, but that requires intentional cooperation on the part of the pilot and gunner. In short, your best defense if the USA team is locking down your air power is to counter-snipe. When both your jets are in the air, you will usually have air superiority. As I mentioned, the 3 Russian team starter bases are important to maintain control of. They are easier to defend and as such usually more difficult to recapture. If the Russian team loses control of all 3, then there is no way to leave the Russian team main base without being attacked. A common tactic for the Russian team to use is to hop into a jeep and drive off to the most idle of the 4 starting USA team bases to capture a flag and move on to another base. Odds are no one will be there to defend it or be able to get there by the time you've captured it and left. If someone is spawning there, they've probably done so in the interest of obtaining a vehicle, so if you have a squad in a jeep, be sure to procure any unoccupied tanks or APCs for your team. Often, however, the Russian team will capture one of the forward bases, and a lot of people will spawn there and begin a slugging match between the recently captured base and whatever USA base happens to be closest. This is a very armor-heavy map. Proper tactics to quickly push and capture a well-defended base are to attack with armored vehicles supported by infantry squads of engineers or support with C4. You will often encounter situations of tank versus tank and APC versus APC, and an engineer with a rocket can make all the difference very frequently. Tanks going alone or infantry squads going alone will usually lose. The strength of the combo of a tank plus 1 engineer with a rocket increases combat effectiveness by over 9,000%. Thank you for watching my Gulf of Oman strategy guide map overview. Hopefully the strategies and tactics given will help others win more frequently on this map.